We've got 2 more weeks until we process these birds. They're going through well over 4 gallons of water a day right now. And we are going to have to add some more in there because we just can't keep up with how much they're going through. We also made the realization that with 27 birds going into the freezer, we needed a bigger freezer. So we went and got one. We'll talk about how much space you need, you know, if you're going to raise chickens, how much freezer space you need, ballpark numbers. You know, this is all doing the best we can to estimate this, but we got some information, we're going to share it.
You're in. You're safe.
Nice job.
Only one has got in here. Are you gonna bring the other one in?
Yeah. So I think obviously it would be more ideal to not hang a water in front of the door, but as much as they're going through, it might be the most convenient thing to just move it out of the way because, you know, you're picking it up, taking it out. You're just moving it more often than having to step around it anytime you have to come in here. This is our first time raising meat chickens, and we wanted to share a week-by-week update, kind of the things we're seeing, things that we're doing or wish we'd done differently, or anything maybe that caught us by surprise. We wanted to make this feel very approachable, so if we can do it, so can you. Each week we've been weighing the birds, and last week we got an average of over 3 pounds for the first time. They are now 6 weeks old, so I'm expecting some 4-pounders in here. I don't know if our average will be that or not. We did go with all hens instead of a mixture of males and females. The hens grow a little smaller than the males do, and they grow a little bit slower, so they'll be ready in 8 weeks as opposed to sometimes the boys can be ready at 7, and even then they're big. For our family, that's going to work out good, and it's going to give us hopefully nice uniform carcasses in the freezer. So this is your chance. Place your bets in the comments. How big are they? We started off weighing these birds on a kitchen scale in a Tupperware container, and then we moved up to a smaller reusable shopping bag, and now we've had to upgrade to a bigger bag because they just don't fit in anything else.
That was one I had to pick up.
All right,
It's a buddy, Daddy.
4.20 pounds.
That's a buddy, Daddy.
Do we?
Yes. It went away. It went away. No. That's a wild buddy.
Hang on, here we go, number 2. Gotta get the hook around here.
Can you put me now?
All right, that one's 4.45 pounds. All right. Hang on. All right, number 3, 4.18 pounds. That's consistency right there this week. Last night we had a raccoon down by the pond, and I suspect he was eating frogs or crawdads. He was after something else. He wasn't after the chickens, but since day 1 we have had a lock on this thing because, you know, better safe than sorry. So that thing has been on there. It's going to stay on there until these birds are no longer in there. We also decided that for the next 2 weeks we're going to be moving these birds in the tractor twice daily. It's going to be more work, obviously, and you know, some days it's going to be harder to do. Some days it may just not happen. But with as much fertilizer, poo, as they're putting out, I'm not super concerned that, you know, we're putting out too much, more than the field can handle, and chicken fertilizer is very hot, so you know, I might burn out a spot if you leave them there too long. I'm a little concerned about that, but I think the better option, they're just putting out so much. If we move them more, you know, 2 times daily, we're covering twice as much ground with less fertilizer each time. But we're going to cover more ground. Our pastures need it all over. Where, you know, overabundance of broom sedge and everything else out there. This is going to be better for the health of the pasture to move it 2 times daily, regardless of what's going to happen otherwise. But it's going to be more work, but that's what we're going to do, just because I think it's going to be the better option. When it comes time to buy your freezer, there are a few things that you want to consider before you just jump in and buy the biggest, baddest one on the market. If you're interested in raising chickens, when they're processed and bagged up, they are, give or take, about a gallon in size.
Obviously, you're going to have some that are larger than that, maybe a few that are smaller, but a gallon is a great place to just, get your mind and visualize what that looks like. Of course, freezers and refrigerators, anything like that, they're sold in cubic feet. There are 7.5 cubic feet per gallon. Of course, I'm talking, we live in the United States. If you live somewhere else and use a metric system, don't ask me, I don't know. 7.5 gallons per cubic foot. So 1 cubic feet will hold about 7.5 chickens. Now this 10 cubic foot freezer should hold, do the math, somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 to 75 chickens. Now there is no way, I don't think we could fit 75 in here. Right now we're raising 27 birds. That's more than enough space here to do that and then have some overflow from our other freezer, because when we have a pig processed and a half a beef in here, that thing is absolutely full, and it leaves no room for anything else that we may have if we want to freeze goat milk, or if we have vegetables. We like to buy our vegetables in bulk in the summertime. We do have a garden. It's over here, that side. I mean, there's only so much we can do with it. We're getting there. We're doing better with protein than we are with vegetables, but we like to buy those locally during the summer, so we have some frozen throughout the winter, just whenever if we want to have them. So having this extra freezer that's a little bit larger than maybe what we would need, plus we're going to have, we haven't told you that yet. I just about slipped up. We haven't told you that yet. 70 birds will fit in here, or 25 to 30 to 40 to 50. We have, a little bit of wiggle room there. So you're thinking, all right, I'm going to go buy the biggest freezer that I can find, spend a whole bunch of money, and I'm not going to have to worry about anything ever again. Well, if it's bigger than what you need, you're actually going to be wasting a little bit of money and energy-wise, because that freezer is going to have to work harder to keep it cold all the time. If you have a bunch of empty space, air in here, that compressor on this machine is going to be running and running and running, and you're just really you're making this thing work hard to keep the space cool. When it's loaded down almost full or full with frozen food, well, that food is keeping this this appliance, it's keeping that cold. It's keeping everything in here cold, and the machine's not having to work quite as hard to do that. Now, of course, you got to get the food cold to begin with. There's no free lunch in physics, but keeping this as full as possible is going to prolong the life of your appliance, and it'll keep the food in here cold. If you happen to lose power and it's full, that food is going to help itself stay cold. Whereas if this thing was full or full of air and mostly empty on food, it won't take much time at all for that stuff to thaw and spoil. So be considerate, be thinking ahead about what you're going to put in it. If you're just doing chickens, you probably don't need a huge freezer. If you're only, for example, if you're doing beef or a half a beef or something, you don't need a huge space. You can get by with a smaller appliance, and just think about it, think ahead a little bit about what you're going to be putting in it. And I think it's a better way to do it, to be mindful of those things. However, if you do buy a bigger one, you're probably going to fill it up. If you're like me, if you're like we are, you'll find stuff to put in there. All of a sudden, the possibilities are endless. So if you keep that in mind, give or take 7.5 birds per cubic foot of freezer space, that'll get you started on buying a freezer. If you're looking at just for chicken or whatever else you may be, I don't know. Possibilities, like I said, are endless. You can do whatever you want. This is your space. Do with it what you want. Butcher Day is only 2 weeks away. If you want to see that and keep up with what we're doing around here, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Click on that playlist with that video. Like having you around. Really appreciate you being here. My name's Reagan. This is the GWP Homestead. See y'all soon.